Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your effusive applause. My name is Jeffrey Gardner, and this is my colleague here, Daniel Herskovich. And we're going to present to you a short recital today of Australian music for cello and piano. There's a lot of this repertoire out there, actually, but it's criminally underplayed, and we're hoping to redress that imbalance a little bit with a few recitals over the next few years, looking at Australian music for this combination. We'd like to kick off our recital today with a couple of short pieces by Don Banks. Now, Don Banks is a wonderful Australian composer. We don't get to hear too much of his music today, which is a real shame, because it's fabulous stuff and beautifully crafted and put together. Don Banks, by trade, was a jazz pianist, and this gives his music a wonderful syncopated flavour. There are lots of delicious sevenths and ninths in it, but that said, there's nothing cuddly about it either. He was a hardcore serialist, and this was a style of composition he picked up when he went to study in Italy with the renowned serial composer Luigi Dallapiccola. He then came back to Australia and for a couple of years was the head of composition at the Sydney Conservatorium until his untimely demise from leukemia just a short time after he took up the post. Nevertheless, he did leave us some wonderful compositions, and we have these three studies, of which we're going to play two today, the first one and the last one, for cello and piano. They were written in 1954. So here we have two of the three studies by Don Banks for cello and piano.
Many years ago, I taught a young teenager the piano for a year before I went overseas. And 40 years later, he turned up on my doorstep with a piece for two pianos. And I'd even forgotten that as a teenager he had composed. And he had actually studied with another composer of Don Banks' generation, Richard Mille, one of the great Australian composers who emerged in the 1960s. Anyway, he came with this piece for two pianos, which turned out to be a wonderful work which I've performed many times and recorded for CD. And for Jeff and myself, he wrote this suite, which you're going to hear. In fact, he completed it, I remember correctly, late 2017.
Yep.
And he wrote it in memory of a dear friend who died relatively young. So there's a prelude and a fugue, a tarantella, a samba, and it ends with a lullaby. And the lullaby is a kind of farewell to the friend who died. And he prefaces it with a quotation from Hamlet, which I've momentarily forgotten. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. So, Suite by Peter Dart in 5 movements.
you something quite different. Here we have a piece by Kate Moore, one of our up-and-coming, well, actually, no, she's more than up-and-coming now. She's very much established with a huge international reputation, and we should be very, very proud of her. Kate divides her time between Australia and the Netherlands. In fact, she's had considerable success over in the Netherlands, so that's where she stays most of the time. This piece, Velvet, she wrote for Bang on the Can All Stars, and it was premiered in New York some years ago, and it's done spectacularly well. Audiences respond wonderfully to it. Kate writes in a minimalist style, which she got from her teacher Andreessen. But fortunately, she writes much better than he does. And this is a quite stunning piece of music, and do enjoy. It's a crowd pleaser, and it gets very, very loud at times. What's not to like? Here we have Velvet by Kate Moore. I mean to draw the frequencies. Oh!
Yeah, it was going all over.
Well, yes, when I was going. That effect? Alright, yes. So that's actually, how do you write that? It's actually really easy. You just go norm, and then you put an arrow to pont, and then an arrow back to norm, and you just keep going between it. So you're circling from, it's the bow position. You go from here, and then watch what happens to the, listen to what happens to the partials. Simple but very cool. Yeah. Just playing with the bow position.
Any other questions? You want to know them? Those of you doing music group performance, you've got lots of things to write about and review. Some of the students are reviewing.
Oh, really? Oh, yes.
I've realized you have a bit of harmonics. Have you included in the score?
Speak up, sorry.
The harmonics. I've noticed you have some harmonics.
Yes.
Have you included them in the score? It's going to be really good.
Oh, thanks. Look, there are a few harmonics written here and there in that piece, but I suppose most of the ones that I use are of my own volition. So there aren't, off the top of my head, there aren't many harmonics in the music we just played actually, which is unusual for modern music. So most of the ones that I have used are just of my own volition, that I've put in myself, yeah. Something you should always look at as composers if you're writing harmonics, be very careful. It's one of the most incorrectly written things out of all for string players. It drives us insane. But so do look at it very carefully when you should write them all the time. They're fabulous, but just be careful when you're writing them. Yeah. You've been down this road, have you?
Well, I work with the cellist, and
Ah.
I kept saying to him, is that yes?
And that's what you do. You ask the cellist. Yes.
Anyone else?
Yes.
Hi, I'm John. I teach you with Dana. I just thought it might be useful if each of you mind sharing with the students what your working life is like. I mean, what, maybe the percentage of time you devote to performing, teaching, different contexts that you play in. Is that something you'd be happy to share?
Sure. You go first.
Yeah. Well, it's a very busy life, as you can imagine. I used to work full-time at the Sydney Conservatorium, but I found I was working 7 days a week, if not 8, because I was trying to keep a performing career going. So I've cut down now to, I'm 60% workload at the Sydney Conservatorium, which gives me time to practice. And in recent years, I've been travelling a lot more, both within Australia and overseas. So I guess I split my time now between almost 50% of my working life. Well, I should say 45% of my working life is teaching, 45 is practicing and performing, and 10 or maybe more is writing emails for Sydney University.
Just 10?
Yeah, mate, well, I was wondering about that, yes.
Is your position at the Conservatorium teaching piano as a lecturer in another area?
It's mainly teaching piano, but within that I also teach chamber music, and I used to be involved in pedagogy, but no longer. So yeah, basically teaching piano. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got a very different sort of, well, I wouldn't call it career, work life. I've got a portfolio career, so I do all kinds of different things. I'm 100% freelance, so I have good months and bad months, but it's just me to look after, so I love it and I can do that. It's a life of variety. So what mainly pays my bills is teaching. I've got about 10 to 12 students that I teach at home. I don't teach at any institutions, private, any single students, so I teach at home. And then I have a couple of lectures. I'm always lecturing somewhere at some institution or place that does lectures, so I've got a couple of subjects I lecture each year, and that's a wonderful tax job, wow. And I get a little bit of super for that. And that's the sort of thing that keeps me on the stage. I don't make much money from my work on the stage, but I love to perform, so I still keep performing. And also do editing, all sorts of things. If it earns money, I'm interested in looking at it. So, yeah, but it's a good life. Don't make terribly much money, but there's lots of variety, lots of different people to work with, and I can go on holiday whenever I want.
Your horse fair
good. Okay, great question. So this is something I got onto when I lived in America. It's quite common in America to see cellists with black horsehair. As far as I know, I'm the only one in Australia that uses it. A bit more traditional out here. This is finest Mongolian stallion hair. I kid you not. Most horsehair is actually synthetic that is used on bows. But why I like the black horsehair is because it's coarser. Stallion hair, you know. So it's coarser and it's grippier. So I actually prefer the feel of that in my hand much more. You will actually see this on double basses quite often. And this is actually double bass hair. So that I have to get a double bass bowman to rehair my bow, but I love it. But there are in fact all sorts of different things you can get your bow rehared with. Salt and pepper is also common, which is a combination of black and white. And there's also brown horsehair. I mean, they dyed all sorts of funny colours now. I've even seen green horsehair, but I'm not going down that road.
Does it make a different sound because of the way it's made?
Subtly, yes. To my ears, it's maybe a little bit coarser, but I'm much more interested in power and projection over beauty. I mean, cellists are obsessed with beauty of sound, and although it's important, it is important. I mean, it's the most beautiful instrument after all.
We won't
come
go
on.
into that.
But yeah, it's slightly coarser to the ear as well. But yeah, I like it.
What cello players are no different.
Look, it's personal preference with these sorts of things. But in a difficult acoustic like this, which is somewhat dry, it's great to have something that's a bit grippier, actually. Yeah.
I'd like to know how you keep your stamina up with, busy schedule. Also, I'd like to know more about sort of preventing things like OSI and stuff like that, if you've ever encountered any problems like that. Performance anxiety, do you still get it at this stage, or that sort of stuff?
I'll start with that one. So there are a few issues there. The first one was how to...
Stamina, yeah.
Well, that's a good question. This week, within 7 days, I have 3 concerts of 3 different programs. And with 3 different lots of colleagues. So you have to be good at time management and you have to plan in advance. For instance, because of that, Jeff and I rehearsed this program. We had a few solid rehearsals about 3 weeks ago and really nailed it, and then we just had one long rehearsal yesterday and it was fine. So you have to plan in advance. As regards to stamina itself, you're like an athlete. A lot of what we do is very similar to what sports people do. They have to husband their resources so that they peak at the right times, and that applies both within a single race and in the days leading up to the race. It's a bit like that with us. With RSI, I have never encountered this problem, and if you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I would have been able to claim that I've never had a student with this problem, because the important thing when we play an instrument is to relax. Now, of course, you cannot be 100% relaxed, because then you fall off the piano stool, for instance. But you have to be as relaxed as possible, which is a different matter, of course. So firmness where required, but only where required. As I said, up to a couple of years ago, I would have been able to say I haven't had a student with that problem. Just in the last couple of years, strangely enough, I've had 2 students. But I have noticed with others who get it that they tend to have thinner bones, and I do wonder whether that has something to do with it. And the final one, performance anxiety, I'd like to turn that around and talk about performance enhancement. So when you have to perform, we still get nervous. So if you're hoping that, in a few years the nervousness goes, it doesn't. But I've been giving concerts for many years. But you use those nerves to enhance the performance. So the adrenaline's going like a horse before a race, and that gives an extra edge to the performance. And of course, you have to help your students manage that. There are various ways. So I've talked a lot about. Do you want to add to that, any of that? Or?
Well, I don't have too much about it. I mean, do I still get nervous? Hell yes. Come on. If you're not getting nervous when you perform, you shouldn't be performing, really. It's just, you're going to be boring. But so it is what Daniel said, you've got to learn how to harness that energy and make it work for you. And I suppose that's one of the things that differentiates like being a young student to like being professional. And it took me a long time to get to that stage, I might add. I had terrible problems managing my performance anxiety when I was a student. But over the years, I learned how to deal with it and to actually turn it round, as Daniel said, and actually feed off it. And if I'm not feeling nervous before a performance, actually that is more disconcerting to me. It's like, hang on, I'm not feeling nervous. Why am I not caring? This is not right. Hang on, what's, you know, it's quite strange. So there's nothing wrong with performance anxiety. You have to feel performance anxiety. It's how you deal with it that counts. And so that's where you master, after years and years, the performer's persona, where, you know, you might feel like you've just died 100 times and the family around you has died, but nevertheless said, hi, I'm great, I'm happy to be here on the stage. And then you can, you know, take the mask off and you go off the stage. But I have to say, I'm thrilled to be here chatting to you right at the moment. It's not you guys, you know. Yeah. No, why would you want to play another string instrument? Come on. No, just cello. That's enough to occupy me.
Piano's a string instrument.
True.
Just in terms of your practice routines, I mean, obviously you guys have played for a long time, but I just wonder how you structure your practice and how many hours.
Look, for me, that it varies dramatically. It depends how much time I have to spend earning money. That's a big one that eats into my practice time, and damn emails. Oh man. So look, there are those weeks we all have where you should be doing things like practice, you just can't. You've got to go out and earn money. And so, so I'm not practicing for a week, but that's terrible, of course, because then I come back to it and I feel awful. And then, but if I have a really big recital coming up for recording, then I'm back to 3 or 4 hours a day, and then it's a matter of prioritising. So, right, this goes out the window, this bit of pleasure goes out the window, I'm not going out tonight, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, and then you make time. You don't find it, you make time. So, because I'm freelance again, I have that luxury, so I don't do that many concerts, nowhere near as many as Daniel, for instance. Well, no, I don't. He does an incredible amount of performing. So, so for me, you know, it varies the amount I practice. It really does. I couldn't keep up 3 or 4 hours a day every day of the year, though. My body wouldn't handle it. It's a lot of wear and tear on the body playing cello and being as tall as I am. So it varies, is the answer.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do try and do some every day. Even if I've got a heavy teaching day, I will try and do an hour. I suppose now at my age, I tend to do about 3 to 4 on a regular basis if I can. Not necessarily, like on the weekends, I'll either do 1 day's practice and take the other day off, or I'll split it over 2 days. I found it necessary. It's very easy as a musician not to have a life, to either sit at the piano and teach and not do anything else. And it's quite important for a musician to have a work-life balance. I think I've got colleagues who, to me, don't have this balance, I have to say. But having said that, I do try to maintain a routine. And even if I don't have concerts coming up, I'm preparing for concerts, a long way ahead. Because, as I said, this week was an unusual week for me, but if I have that situation, I have to have prepared well in advance.
I think time has gone. Thanks very much for the questions. That's terrific.
Good.
Thank you very much, Daniel and Jeffrey. Again.